They didn't drink beer because the water was bad. That's a complete lie. You think everyone in the Middle Ages was constantly drinking ale to avoid disgusting, deadly water? Wrong. Most people, especially in the country, drank water every single day. They knew which sources were safe, but what if I told you that's not the whole truth? What if the real reason an entire civilization ran on beer had less to do with avoiding death and more to do with fueling life itself? So, why did they really drink beer instead of water? The answer is far more surprising than you think. The biggest myth we need to address is that all water was unsafe. It wasn't. People in the Middle Ages were not clueless. They knew a clear, running spring was safe, and the murky water downstream from the tannery was not. Many people, especially in the countryside, drank water every single day. So, if safe water existed, why was beer the default? The answer isn't in what beer prevented, but in what it provided. You have to understand that for about 90% of the population, life was grueling physical labor. A medieval farmer could burn 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day, sometimes more during harvest. Their diet of bread and vegetable pottage was often barely enough to survive. Beer was their solution. It was known as liquid bread. A thick, unfiltered, and nutritious brew was packed with carbohydrates and essential B vitamins from the yeast. For the working class, this wasn't an intoxicating beverage. It was a vital source of energy. The weak, low-alcohol version they drank throughout the day, often called small beer, was essentially the medieval equivalent of an energy drink, a way to get calories and hydration on the go. Now, let's talk about the water. The fear wasn't entirely baseless, but it was a matter of geography. If you lived in the countryside, you likely had access to a clean well, a spring, or a fast-flowing river, and you drank from it without a problem. The real danger was in the city. In a place like medieval London, the Thames River was both the primary source of drinking water and the city's open sewer. It was filled with human waste, animal carcasses, and runoff from polluting industries like leather tanning. Here, the risk of contracting cholera or dysentery was terrifyingly real. In this environment, beer wasn't just a good idea. It was a feat of public health engineering. The very process of brewing saved lives. The first step, boiling the grain mash, or wort, effectively pasteurized the water, killing off the dangerous pathogens. The alcohol and hops then acted as preservatives, keeping the final product safer for longer than the water from the local river. But how you drank depended entirely on who you were. For a nobleman living in a castle, life was different. His castle was built with a deep, protected well, drawing from clean groundwater far below the filth of the surface. He drank this water freely. For him, strong, flavorful ale, or expensive imported wine, was a symbol of status. It was a luxury, a pleasure, not a necessity. Now, consider a peasant farmer. He worked from sunup to sundown. His village might have a perfectly clean well, but water alone wouldn't get him through the harvest. That small beer was his fuel. It provided the calories to swing a scythe for 10 hours straight. For him, beer was survival. It was food. Finally, imagine a blacksmith in the heart of a crowded city. He couldn't trust the polluted river. He didn't have a private well. For him, the local tavern selling ale wasn't a luxury. It was his only reliable source of safe liquid. Here, the myth becomes reality. Drinking beer was simply the safest choice. This reliance on beer fundamentally shaped medieval society. Brewing was a cornerstone of every community. Most households, from the smallest hut to the largest manor, brewed their own ale. The alewife was a respected and essential figure in village life. The tavern or alehouse became the center of the social world. It wasn't just a place to drink. It was where business deals were made, news was shared, and friendships were forged. It was the original social network, powered by grain and water. This also created a different relationship with intoxication. The goal of drinking small beer wasn't to get drunk. If you were too drunk to work, you and your family would starve. It was a functional drink. The constant, low-level buzz was likely just a normal part of daily existence, a subtle warmth to dull the aches of hard labor. So, the image of the medieval world constantly drinking beer isn't wrong, but the reason is far more complex. They weren't just running from dangerous water. They were running towards calories, nutrition, and in the crowded cities, a guaranteed source of safety. And in a way we haven't changed that much. We haven't. The next time you grab a protein shake after a workout, an electrolyte drink during a run, or even just a sugary coffee to get you through the afternoon, you're doing exactly what that medieval farmer did when he reached for his flask of small beer. You're not just drinking, you're refueling. They weren't just avoiding death in the water. They were consuming life from the grain.